look for love, no time for tears. Wasted water already, and it don't make no flowers grow. Good things might come to those who wait, not to those who wait too late. We gotta go for all we know. Just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the two of us. Just the two of us. Feeling them castles in the sky. Just the two of us. You and I.
Good evening. Twilight in the fields and the rains came pouring down. I waited for your call and drove back into town. Blood red and golden leaves were falling to the ground. Cinematic wet streets reflect the clouds. I'll wait until morning and I will meet you there. Even when it's stormy, there's sunlight in your hair. I'll bask in your splendor and your scent upon the air. Past the forks of cypress, we walk through the trails past the pond on fallen leaves, where your brother saw his own reflection in my dreams, watching us making love upon the cold hard ground. Buried in the wet leaves, down to sound. Threw my coat into the backseat and I drove into town. Past the forks of cypress, the road that wraps around the bottomland and one-lane bridge before the new highway. You light built along the coast that paved the way. Better ask me and I would never tell. Something so forbidden, I'll carry it to hell. Then burn it down there with me with the lips that speak profane. A love that burns as hot as my secret shame. Falls that lead to winters into springs and summers green. The one that hurt me most, fertilize the ground serene. Hazel eyes and blood beckoning to speak thy name. My secret shame haunts me in my dreams, stalking like the panther in the soybean. Ghosts that haunt me still as my bones rest in the fields. Past the forks of Cyprus. Past the forks of Cyprus. Past the forks of Cyprus. Good evening.
Hey. Welcome to the Devil in the Details tour, night 2. I'm Craig Finn, that's Patterson Hood. This is a song from my new record. It's about a priest who doesn't believe in God, and you'll find that among my songs that's not very unique. They're all kind of about a priest who doesn't believe in God. Anyways, this one goes like this. In the later afternoon, it sort of softens on the avenue, wasting the remainder of the day, drinking off what's left of the glasses on the table when the couples get their checks and walk away. And I'll be here tomorrow and then every day that follows, till I see you later on this week. Will you come and pick me up when I get up off the bus? Will you help me bring my stuff out to the beach? When we met, I was the reverend. You were in the congregation. Didn't happen right away, but pretty soon. And I never had a calling. I just had a strong desire to be the one that stood up in the room. When I was a child, I used to fixate on the chaplain, the way he brought the widows all to tears. That looked like a decent way to make a little living here. I gave myself to God for a few years. Built a chapel off the exit on the highway outside Harrisburg. There was all that new development back then. Parishioners would come to me with cakes and little pastries, asked me for my blessing once again, but I couldn't shake the feeling. I was faking all the faithfulness, and every single sermon was a fraud. Drifted through the rituals, prideful, high, and pitiful, pissing off a petty, vengeful God. Pissing off a petty, vengeful God. Are both ancient now. I'm staying at their summer house, clear out on the weekends when they come. To my sisters with her daughter on the fringe of Philadelphia, with her skinny cigarettes and snapping gum. But I'm grateful for the place to stay. I'm caddying on Saturdays. The money's not as good as it was when we were teenagers. Walk back from the golf course, cut through a couple backyards, try to keep my eyes pointed heavenward. In another prior life, the Reverend and his wife, sitting in the kitchen making plans, unaware of all the mess, the pressure in the flesh is capable of making in a man. And I never really fell, 'cause I was never quite convinced, but I must admit I miss all the simplicity of a woman and a man. Though I also understand the reasons you no longer want to be with me. I can see why you no longer want to be with me. came in hot, and someone called the cops. I explained to them how much it is you mean to me. The cuffs, they made a click as they wrapped around my wrists. Everybody's got some version of security. Somewhere there's a life where the Reverend has his wife and Jesus has his ministry in Galilee. But this sunset looks like blood from the windows of this bus. Somewhere between Harrisburg and Bethany. Somewhere between Harrisburg and Bethany. Somewhere between Harrisburg and Bethany.
I wrote this song about my high school sweetheart, and about 40 years after the fact. And and as far as that kind of thing goes, I got pretty lucky actually, because she was pretty kick-ass, and I don't think she hates me anymore either, which is always a bonus.
Mine's in the audience tonight.
I don't think mine is. But it would be okay if she was. But y'all remember that movie Blue Valentine? Anybody remember that movie? I love that movie. And it told the story of this love affair, but it only told the beginning and the end. It only told like that moment when they really fell in love and that moment when it was just fucking done. And they skipped all the middle part, and then they kind of just told it all out of order. And I don't know. I think I just wanted to write that song about it, and I wanted to tell both sides of the story kind of at the same time. And so the verses are like kind of my point of view, and the choruses are her point of view, and then the end is just kind of all of it. And so I wrote it, and to me there was only really one person to sing her part, and that's my buddy Lydia Lovelace. Y'all know Lydia? She's so badass. And we're good enough buds that I knew that if I sent her those lyrics, because they're a little bit kind of gross and yucky, if I sent her those lyrics and she was like, dude, I'm not singing that shit, fuck you, it'd be cool. We'd still be friends. It wouldn't be any kind of weirdness about it. And so I demoed the song and I sent it to her, and then I didn't hear for several days. I'm like, oh shit, she hates it. And she's trying to figure out a nice way of telling me that it's shitty and she's not going to do it. And I was probably just about to like reach out and say, hey, look, it's okay, but instead I got a link, and she emailed me a link of the demo with her voice added to it doing the chorus, and it was stunning. And so it's like, well, fuck, I'm not touching that. So we just mixed it and put that on the record, and that was the first single. So this song's called A Werewolf and a Girl. Picked you up at the trailways and you kissed me on the mouth. Saw a movie set in London about a werewolf and a girl. Tattoo you was on my stereo. You can do it if you feel like. I won't call out or complain. I'll just try and hold it just right, even if there is some pain. You can do it if you feel like. I might feel a little too. I'll be warning in the morning, but I'm warning in the morning. I'll be gone before you do. started laughing, said it's really just in time, and you need to put it in me before I go and change my mind. You can do it if you feel like. I won't call out or complain. I'll just try and hold it just right. Blame my sadness on the rain. You can do it if you feel like. I've been feeling itchy too. I've been alone in the moonlight, all alone in the moonlight. What's a broken girl to do? It might happen once again in the moonlight, once again out in the fields. We can hold each other just right. We can hold each other just right. We can hold each other just right. Got a brand new car that drinks a bunch of gas. Got a
So Patterson and I have known each other. Patterson's been giving me fits. No, he hasn't. We've known each other a long time, but there was a time we didn't know each other. And I like telling this story after that song because when I first heard Drive By Truckers, I was not in a band. I'd moved to New York City, I'd broken up my band in Minneapolis, and I went to see the Drive By Truckers at the Bowery Ballroom, and I said, I need to be in a fucking band. And I started a band, it was called The Hold Steady. Still have that band, still enjoying it a lot. And, but you know, we started making music, and I really wanted to meet the Drive By Truckers. That was my goal. So much, I was such a fan. Their show changed my life. Like, you know, people say that show changed my life. It literally changed my life, changed the direction of my life. And, but I still hadn't met them. And I remember I was working my office job and my band had come out with our first record. It was a CD back then, 2004. And these guys were playing at the Conan O'Brien show. I live in New York City. And I thought I'd go up there and hang out on the sidewalk and see if I can meet them with my CD, because I felt like if they heard my music and I met them, we could be friends. I really felt this strongly.
He was right.
And I went up there.
Could have been friends.
And they didn't show up. Well, they were there, but I was. They were not on the sidewalk where I was.
We were in the stairwell smoking so much dope that we almost got thrown out of 30 Rock. And they told us later that the day before us, Snoop Dogg had been there, and that we smoked more dope than Snoop Dogg. And they meant it as an insult, but we were so happy. But I digress.
I wish I would have seen you roll out of that stair. If you got thrown out, I might have met you earlier. But instead, I just went home. But and then to tie the story, the first time I still didn't meet them. We put out our second record. First time we came to Seattle, we played the Old Crocodile. I remember showing up at that, and there was a review of our new record in the Seattle Weekly, and I picked it up, and it said. This guy said, you know, it's kind of like Drive By Truckers, but for Northerners. And I was like, and I said, someone knows what I'm trying to do here. And then years went on, and eventually we ended up both working with a guy named John Agnello. And I kept saying, John, does Patterson or the guys, do they know who we are? And he said, yeah, they do, I swear to God, I swear to God. And I said, I just want proof. And then I got the song, I got the record, and I heard the song Righteous Path that Patterson just did. It said, trying to hold steady on a righteous path. And I said, he's sending us messages.
And I was.
And he was. It turns out he was. And shortly after that we met, and we've been friends ever since. And that's how we got here. And I want to thank Patterson and Ben for being on this tour. I've not always got to hang out with such people of substance, and the song's sort of about that. The day I don't get depressed anymore, except possibly December at the Delaware shore. Maybe missing numbers on the motel doors, toy section at this drugstore. And otherwise I'm pretty much cured. I've been getting out of bed before noon now. Gonna find a new place pretty soon now. The whole thing's moving uptown. And I'm sorry about the way that I scared you. I'm sorry that I wasn't in touch since. I spent way too much time with people without any substance. But I decided that I'm gonna push forward. I'm committed to making the change. But you gotta remember, I never go out in the rain. It's been raining all day and my jacket got nicked from the coat check. Curtains can't keep out the gray. These umbrellas that you get at the drugstore always blow the wrong way. Dana, I don't drink nearly as much, 1 or 2 nights of the week at the most. I know I used to be such a monster, the city's still lousy with ghosts. And I'm sorry about that fight in the taxi, you know that probably just wasn't my night. If you just agree to come see me, I could try to make it alright. And I decided that I'm gonna back off now. I heard you turn that old boy into a husband, 'cause now you're out in the county hanging out with some people of substance. I'm done with the breakdowns, but the winter's pretty weird here at the shore. You never really told me what it was you cut me off for. I'm still not sure, so I decided that I'd call and just check in, if I was good enough for you back then. Shouldn't be ashamed to bring me around to your new friends. And I've been asking around for some sort of system to trust in. Maybe you could put me in touch with some people of substance. I spend way too much time on people without any substance. I spend way too much time on people without any substance. I spend way too much time on people without any substance. So, I put out a record in April. It's called Always Been, and a lot of it is about that guy I was talking about earlier, the priest who didn't believe in God, doesn't believe in God. And he made a pretty awful choice as far as his career went. But it catches up to him. It catches up to him, and he ends up kind of wandering around trying to figure out what comes next. And I didn't make just, I wrote a lot of songs about this guy, but I didn't just make a record about this guy. I wrote a book too. It's called Lousy with Ghosts. And I have it here tonight. If anyone's interested, I'm just saying because it makes a great Christmas gift. And it's all about the same guy, this priest that didn't believe in God, but he lives in his parents' summer house when they're not there. And because he doesn't have anywhere else to go. But sometimes his parents want to use that summer house. And because they love him, but they don't like him that much, they ask him not to be there when they go down there. And when that happens, he goes up to his sisters, who lives kind of on the edge of Philadelphia, and she lives there with her daughter. And I started thinking a lot about that house and what went on there. And this is kind of a scene report from over there. My sister has a daughter, doesn't look much like her, looks more like the father she won't see. She's mostly on her phone these days, she's got a couple friends her age, some secrets that she died to try to keep. When I'm staying in their guest room, I can hear her in the next room, whispers in the silence and the sighs. She doesn't eat much breakfast, single slice of toast at most, watches from the corners of her eyes. And there's crumbs around the corners of her mouth, and you can hear the highway from their house. The traffic sounds like water in a river rushing south. We'll never win this war, but maybe we can wait it out. We'll never win this war, but maybe we can wait it out. Mother is my sister, she's a fighter, but she's tired now. Third shift's such a bitch to decent sleep. And Sunday she puts perfume on and waltzes with the vacuum on, sucks up the destruction of the week. In the kitchen there's a radio, sings along the one she knows, remembers back when some of these were new. When the girls all chose a guy from the dances at the Y, felt like that was what you're supposed to do. Now all those choices seem a little grim, violent, wild, or disengaged and dim. The highway goes forever, but your funds will fence you in, paying bills and stubbing out generic super slims. The years they put the yellow in her hair and teeth and skin. Her husband was a contractor, a hunter and a fly fisher, never raised a hand, he just withdrew. So far inside his head that you would barely even notice him, ghosts that usually in the other room. Eventually they started sleeping separately. Eventually it didn't even hurt. Last winter he moved out to his brother's house. Eventually he stopped going to work. And now she hasn't seen a check in 7 months. And they're living off of credit cards and crumbs. She's pretty sure her daughter has been meeting up with boys. We'll never win this war, but maybe we won't get destroyed. She's wishing that that highway would make that goddamn noise. She doesn't really trust her daughter's friends. She's happy that I'm helping out with rent. So we stay up late and talk about the way it was before. We can maybe wait it out, but we'll never win this war. We can maybe wait it out, but we'll never win this war. We can maybe wait it out, but we'll never win this war.
This was my idea of a children's song before I had kids. When they thaw out Uncle Disney, gonna be some changes made. Pointing fingers, asking questions about 50 years of decisions made. When they thaw out Uncle Disney, all his tunes gonna be just fine. America's just a giant theme park. Put on them mouse ears and get in line. When they thaw out Uncle Disney, boy, won't he be surprised. Cartoon cures for all our cancers, thunder clouds in the Florida skies. Disney, you'll be coming back to me to stay. I'll be waiting for you to call me when they roll them credits and the music fades. When they thaw out Uncle Disney, heads will roll, I'm afraid. Someone will be held accounted for 50 years of decisions. is Ben Hackett back there playing everything known to man. So, one of the joys of having children, of which there are many, but one of those kind of weirdo joys about it is every time one of your kids gets diagnosed with something, I learn something new about my childhood. I mean, I grew up in the 70s in Alabama. They didn't talk about the autism spectrum. They didn't know what the fuck ADHD was. And they sure the fuck never heard of sensory processing disorder. That one particularly made a whole lot of sense in my life. I put out a record back in the spring. It's called Exploding Trees and Airplane Screams. We got them for sale, by the way, so please walk out with one, because Spotify ain't gonna pay my new insurance premiums. It's dawned on me in my recent years that I've always been a little bit obsessive. Go figure. And thinking back, when I was a kid, it was already starting, and I started thinking back, like, what was the first thing I was really obsessed with? Probably the Beatles. And that song, Hey You, Get Off My Cloud by the Stones. When I was 3, I used to sing it over and over and over and drive my parents crazy. And then it was Walt Disney's Pinocchio. I really loved Walt Disney's Pinocchio. It came out in 1940, but I'm not that old. But it was re-released in 1971 when I was 7 years old, and I saw it over and over and over and over and over. And nowadays, if your kids want to watch a movie over and over, it's not that big a deal. Everything's streaming, or you buy the DVD or the Blu-ray or something, and they just watch it to their heart's content. But back when I was a kid, if you wanted to see a movie over and over, you had to talk some grown-up into taking you to see it over and over. And I had teenage parents. They were good for one time at best if I was really lucky, and it was something they were kind of interested in seeing too. But I also had this amazing grandmother and great uncle, and they took me to see it over and over, and I memorized that motherfucker. And I would act it out in my grandmother's backyard for the kids in the neighborhood, and they hated it. So I learned at a really early age all about bad reviews. This song's called Pinocchio. Life's a hard list and that keeps piling on. Trying to learn which star to wish upon. Wish upon a star like Geppetto did. Turn this block of wood into a well-formed kid. Trying to figure out like a sad detective. Long enough and the thing's defective. Searching for a line that can save my soul. Just spending my favors just to pay my toll. Trying to see the light like a Rundgren song. Standing in the darkness trying to sing along. Raise your voice to heaven so your friends can hear. Then sing a little softer just to pull them near. Life's a hard lesson, but it's always teaching. Arms ain't long enough, but they're always reaching. Reaching for a line that can save my soul. Spending my favors just to pay my toll, pay my toll. Getting kinda old, closer each day to my long-term goal. Trying to get a grip on my constant bitching. Heaven is a house with a modern kitchen. Heaven is the pace of a slow news day. A closer look at someone with a lot to say. Closer look at someone in the morning's light. Yellow sunglasses keep my mood just right. The devil's in the details, but will see us through till my blue fairy makes my wish come true. I learned heaven ain't pleasure island, more to keeping love than to keeping on smiling. Truth can hurt a lot, but a lie destroys. Deep inside of every man is a real live boy.
Thank you. All right. One of the things when I first heard Patterson's songs that I really dug was that the sense of place that he always has, and I always wanted to do that too. I couldn't write songs about Alabama. I hadn't been there when I first heard the Drive-By Truckers, but I'm from Minneapolis. That's where I grew up. So you've heard of it. And this song is about two people I knew in Minneapolis. They were a couple, and their names were Sean and Sabrina. If you're from there, if you're yelling out, maybe you knew them too. But I'll tell you what, Sean, you might not know Sean because he had a nickname. No one ever called him Sean. Everyone called him Shamrock. And Shamrock had that, he always wore one of those green, you know what I'm talking about, those green jackets, Celtics jackets, you know, green satin Boston Celtics jacket. And I don't know if he wore that jacket because they called him Shamrock or they called him Shamrock because he wore the jacket. It was a chicken and the egg kind of thing. I am 99.9% sure that they didn't call him Shamrock because he'd ever been to Ireland. There's absolutely no chance. And I'm 98% sure he hadn't been to Boston either. Shamrock was a stay in South Minneapolis kind of guy. But him and Sabrina, they fell in love. And this is their story. She met him after summer school. Hiawatha bus stop in a knockoff Celtics jacket. Said his crew, they call him Shamrock. His mother died when he was 5, and his dad's some sort of drug cop. But the apple sometimes rolls way down the hill. Sabrina claimed the south side, but really she's from Richfield. These invisible divisions never seem like such a big deal. She's been working at some wine bar, making jokes about the mouthfeel. She sometimes takes 20s from the till. Unprovoked and unadorned, white t-shirts and cut-off shorts. Summer takes a shapeless form after dark and powder horn. If you pull your funds together, then you're barely ever broke. Walking up to SA to get smokes. In the spring they found some shambles, the South Suburban sprawl. Sabrina's taking classes, Shamrock's hanging drywall. And his fingernails keep falling off, and he comes home pissed and sore. And every day he hates it more and more. So the years go by and life goes on. Nothing really happens. School became a drag, so she went back to be a waitress. There isn't much to sit on when the old crew comes to visit, so they all get high and pass out on the floor. Shamrock just stops working. Said it's such a meager pittance. Once they take the taxes out, it's barely even worth it. The TV's set to static, and there's drums off in the distance. The daughter's sleeping in a dresser drawer. Unprescribed and unfulfilled, application special skills. She admits she sometimes still takes 20s from the till. Shamrock's sick of trying to smile when he's holding in the smoke. Got talking to this guy he sorta knows. Came in this evening from the county credit union. Two guys with masks and pistols crashed in as they were closing. By the time the cruisers came around, they had grabbed the cash and scattered. The cameras always capture all the action, so a trooper pulled them over. Vehicle description at a Hampton Inn in Hudson, about a mile into Wisconsin. When the footage ran on News at 9, she could tell that it was Shamrock. And that ragged satin jacket that says Boston. Unrehearsed and unprepared, be the only one who cares for a daughter who keeps asking about her father. They pulled their funds together, but somehow she's still broke, walking up to Speedway to get smokes. Walking up to Speedway to get smokes. All right, so we did this last night, and it went pretty well, but I have to stand up to do this one. This song is about a guy also from my hometown of Minneapolis, but he's at that age, which I think a lot of people, at least in the Midwest, go through, where he feels like everything will just be okay if he could only move somewhere else. All his problems will go away if they won't come with him. He just needs to go somewhere. And where he wants to go? Right here, Seattle. Does he make it? Not during the song. Who knows? This is a very short period of time we talk about. But we'll listen to his hopes and dreams right now. In the front room, so I couldn't sleep when the sun showed up with its heavy August heat. I sat up on the couch and surveyed the wreckage, still wearing my wristband, which always makes it worse. The bars had been whatever, we shouldn't have even bothered, but after we went back to Fletcher's with the best part of a handle and a plan to lay the remainder out on the table, listen to some records and suck up whatever Saturday was left. Then Fletcher got the text from this chick Steph he met last weekend. So she was out with girlfriends and they'd gone out dancing, but now the clubs were closing and they're all dressed up and they didn't really want to go home quite yet. So then there were the three of them drinking vodka in the kitchen, Steph and two others in tiny shiny dresses. One of them was gorgeous, but she seemed a little standoff, so I chatted up the short one till she brought up her boyfriend. A little later, these kids we used to skate with came traipsing up the stairs with a case of Coors Banquet. They said they saw the lights on and thought that they should check in. When they entered, they had their arms raised like victors. Yeah, the whole thing had momentum. And I remember standing on the staircase looking over the proceedings, thinking these dudes are mostly decent, and I've known them all forever, and friendships stick together. I'm sick of all the sadness, and I gotta stop thinking about Seattle. It's probably good enough right here. And the ashtrays and the fruit flies and the heavy sun and sticky floors. I wasn't really sure it was all that good anymore. Found my shoes in the foyer and a jumble of sneakers and one silver high heel. Steph came out of Fletcher's bedroom and went into the bathroom. She was trying to be quiet, but I think I heard her vomit. She ran the water a really long time and came out chewing gum. Still in the same dress she'd worn out to the clubs. Once I put my shoes on, I went out to the sidewalk and squinted in the bright light. And she came out on the front steps, and the sunlight made sparkles on her sequins. And I wished I had my shades. She cursed the friends that left her, said she couldn't wait for Fletcher. She asked if I had cigs, and I did. She spit her gum in the gutter, leaned in as I lit it. At first she smelled like spearmint, and then she smelled like smoke. So 7 a.m. on Sunday, we walked down University towards Broadway, stopped and got some coffee. She told me she's a hostess at a restaurant, and in the spring she started at Aveda, but she couldn't really deal, so she just stopped showing up. She's been staying with her mother's in New Brighton, trying to save some money, but her mother can't stay sober, so she's sort of scared to leave her. Eventually she'd like to live somewhere just a little warmer. But for now, it's probably good enough right here. It's probably good enough right here. Bench along the river, we watch a dragonfly and its partner hover just above the water. She said she loves summer and she's sad it's almost over. She gets depressed around September. It reminds her of going back to school. I told her all last year we went to a wedding in Seattle and my cousin took us sailing in Lake Union. In the middle of that stillness, I felt an urgency to live where nobody knows me, where all my prior sins couldn't be held against me. Crashing with my cousin, doing landscaping or something. But my cousin has 2 children, and Seattle's expensive, and funds have been elusive. It'll probably never happen. Yeah, that's probably just as well. So I don't want to be some dude that makes a big deal out of moving, that comes back a few months later a total fucking failure. Like when Fletcher went to Denver, he had 3 kegs at his send-off, and he came back before Christmas, and everyone was laughing. And they won't let him forget it, and they won't let him outlive it. Behind his back, they call him Rocky Mountain Fletcher. They'll destroy it just for trying something different. And now my voice was cracking, and I was pretty close to crying. She put her head on my shoulder, said the ones we've known the longest can pull us down the strongest. I put my arm around her when we sat and watched the water, jealous of the movement of the current, but maybe for a moment. It was really good right here. I'm gonna stand for one. Those guys can take a bathroom break. Thanks for that. So speaking of moving, I grew up in Minneapolis, but I've lived in New York for 25 years. And I still haven't written very many New York songs. For some reason, I default to songs about Minneapolis. But I've lived there so long, I've lived in New York longer than I ever lived in Minneapolis. So I've started to get a hang up about it, maybe I should have some New York songs. But it's intimidating, right? Like, New York feels like that's for Jay-Z and Lou Reed, right? But, at some point, I started to give myself these pep talks, like, how can you get a few more New York songs? So I started to think about one way I might try to trick myself into it, is to choose a place nearby. And then work up to the city, And of course, the first thing I thought was New Jersey. But there's this other songwriter I really like. Yeah, you don't want to step on the toes of John Bon Jovi, right? This song starts out in New Jersey, anyways. It's about someone who's no longer with us. Her name's Jessamine, and that's the name of the song, and it goes like this. I met Jessamine in Cherry Hill, just dress all done in daffodils, with a sticker on her skateboard that said speed kills, and yeah, it probably just did what it said. I only knew her for like 3 weeks straight, but the whole time we were wide awake. Trenton makes, the world takes. She had a spray painted over her bed. We used to hang around in her room, getting off on all the gloom in the dome, watching cavemen in the cartoons, playing xylophones made out of bones. She was sexy but still death obsessed. She said the bloodshed would make such a mess. Oh, but you really don't even have to market it. Yeah, it pretty much sells itself. I should have asked her before she departed. How did all these wars get started? Why do rival crews show up at the same parties if they hate each other so much? It's like they're secretly in love. She says suspicion isn't wisdom. Don't the drones look just like doves? And there was something laying siege to the kingdom, but she never really said what it was. And the incense burns to ashes, and the sunrise was unsure. Jessamine must have had some dreams, but she never really said what they were. She never really said what they were. We kinda ended how we began. Jessamine meeting a man. Yeah, I'm liking that man just a little bit more than the boy she had before. I hadn't really seen her since. I guess this new guy was some kind of prince. I guess his castle was a front for a fence, and the whole damn city got warm. And we were trying to ride out that storm, 'cause the rain is inconsistent and the thunder's insincere, 'cause it makes a big commotion, but eventually it clears. I went out to San Francisco, and some sailors stole my shirt. I was sitting in the passenger side of the taxi, the first time that I heard. She was probably speeding, no one else was hurt. Jessamine must have had some dreams, but she never really said what they were. She never really said what they were. Thank you so much. Ben Hackett, ladies and gentlemen, and Patterson.
Again for Ben Hackett. mentioned a little bit ago about my teenage parents. And I spent a lot of my childhood with my grandmother and my great uncle, and they were pretty awesome. My great uncle was a truck driver, and he was born in 1920, grew up during the Great Depression, and he went to World War II and fought at Iwo Jima and made it home alive. And he never married, he never had kids. He was super shy. And although I didn't realize that until I was much older, because to me, he wasn't at all shy. And he was like a father figure to me. And he would drive trucks all week for International Harvester out of Springfield, Ohio. And at the end of his last route on Friday, he'd take a Greyhound bus to Florence, Alabama, and be there when I'd get home from school. And I'd go out and spend the weekend on his farm, the farm that he and my grandmother and their other sibling grew up on. And I had a go-kart out there and a cousin named Tommy who had a go-kart just like mine, and we would play Steve McQueen, Bullet, chasing each other through those fields. And my great uncle, George A., he would take a bush hog and he would cut out these paths, and he'd let the grass grow up really high, then cut out paths, like roads, like a grid with on-ramps and off-ramps, and we would chase each other through there and up and down hills and through the woods lot. And one time I was riding my go-kart behind his little tractor my great uncle George A.'s tractor, and he was like cutting out the path through the woods lot, a pathway for me to ride, and I was coming along behind him, and he ran over a yellow jacket nest, and I rode my go-kart right into that motherfucker, and I got stung about 25 times. You remember what I said earlier about sensory processing disorder? That shit hurt like a motherfucker. And then on Sunday, he'd drop me off at either my grandmother's or my parents', depending on what kind of state my parents are in. And then he would take a Greyhound bus all night back to Springfield, Ohio, and pick up another load of trucks and repeat the process again and again and again and again and again and again. And my grandmother, she lived in a mid-century modern house in Norwood Park, which was like the first subdivision in North Florence that they built like in the 1950s. And they bought that house in 1954. They were the first owners, amongst the first people in the neighborhood. And across the street was this little red brick house, and in it was this old lady, and she never married, she never had kids, and her name was Ann Cold Iron. And she was my godmother. And so Ann Cold Iron came from old money, and but she didn't get to spend very much of it because she had some mental illness, and she had spent some time in and out of mental institutions back in those dark days when it was like one flew over the cuckoo's nest. She had some shock treatment, and somewhere along the way her brother got power of attorney over her part of the estate, so he put her on a really tight allowance, and every time she'd need more money or ask for a raise, he would remind her of her mental illness. She was being gaslighted. I learned about gaslighting at a very young age. But he would let her buy a brand new Oldsmobile every 2 years, and she'd buy the biggest goddamn Oldsmobile in the lot. And she didn't have a driver's license, so she couldn't drive it. So my grandmother would drive her around and run all her errands for her and take her to the grocery store and the bank and pay the phone bill. Back in those days, you had to go pay the phone bill. And I spent a lot of my childhood in the back of Ann Cold Iron's Oldsmobile. Oldsmobiles parked on the street, 10 miles to the gallon in red velvet seats. Sissy's gonna drive us anywhere and once. She will run her errands and wash her clothes. Money in the bank and can't touch it all. she asks her brother, he don't return her calls. She gets her allowance and time goes marching on as another summer turns into fall, turns into fall. Another coat of paint. The yard needs cutting, the gutters clean, but it will have to wait. She says her air conditioner's poisoning the skies. Birds keep dropping dead in her yard. And cold air never married, and she lives alone with emphysema and Shirley Temple dolls. Shirley Temple dolls from a childhood long ago, still kept in their boxes in their closet. In the closet. Drive. Men in white gloves at the door while she hid inside. Cowering in the closet, she'd leave bound and tied. Shock treatments to make the dead birds subside. Her brother's at the country club every night till late. Like men in tuxedos pour his bourbon straight. Gets their inheritance and paperwork that states he's the sole executor of the estate, the cold iron estate. The cold iron estate. For money, he'd remind her of the time the blues would make the birds fall from the sky, fall from the skies, and the madness that implies lithium and tranquilizers, lithium and tranquilizers, tranquilizers. Oldsmobile's a Delta 88, so large it had a playground in the backseat. She couldn't drive, but Sissy took her everywhere, and I would wait out in the parking lot. So when I was a kid, I had this babysitter, and her name was Wendy Vampel, and she was really cool. She was a painter, she was an artist, she had great taste in music. She turned me on to some really cool music as a young kid. She had the same name as one of my favorite songs in the world when I was a little bitty boy, Wendy by The Association. Another one that I would sing over and over and over and fixate on. And she's in that movie, Gimme Shelter, about the Rolling Stones. Remember that movie? Yeah, well, you know, they went to Altamont in that movie. But before they went to Altamont, they went to Muscle Shoals, Alabama, which is my hometown. And they recorded 3 songs at my dad's recording studio, Muscle Shoals Sound. They recorded Brown Sugar and Wild Horses and You Gotta Move. And if you watch that movie, Gimme Shelter, when they walk out of the Holiday Inn in Florence, Alabama, they walk right past this one young woman who's standing there to meet them. And that was my babysitter, Wendy Vampel. And my parents became good friends with her. And they were a little bit older than her, but they also became friends with her parents. And so, and every Christmas, her parents, the Vampels, would have a big Christmas party, and we would go, and my parents would get plowed. In fact, everybody there but me would get plowed. I was the only kid there, and I watched a bunch of grown-ups get really fucked up every Christmas Eve. And then late at night, we'd go back home so that Mom and Dad could become Santa Claus, and Dad would be driving us home. And true story. So around 14, it's like, puberty's kicking in, and I'm watching that punch bowl and watching how much fun the grown-ups are having and realizing that they're not paying any fucking attention to me. So I would go and pour me a little bit of that punch. It tasted pretty good. And the more I drank, the better it tasted, and the more the party all made sense. This song is called The Vampel Parties.
The night, intellectuals and artists and socialites, grown-ups getting wasted and eating appetizers, and me, I was only 8 years old, watching everyone line up at the punch bowl. Allegations and things about which we didn't know yet. Artifacts and art filled up where they lived. Hardwood floors and empty grunge where drinks were spilled. Mistletoe, stolen kisses, stolen pills, I surmise. Holding poodle on the stairs, complexity and dirty jokes and grown-up love affairs. Secrets spill out amongst the Christmas cheer. At 14, I figured out that no one else would notice. Held myself to Christmas punch and silently got loaded. Jokes would all get funnier, mistakes will still be noted. Looking out, car windows headed home. 2 a.m. Christmas morning. Woo! 2 a.m. Christmas morning. Vampel house stood high up on the hill, block from university, I guess it's standing still. It's been a long time, the hands of time will kill you. The hands of time will kill you. Now they're gone, and now they moved along. Ghost bones and broken Christmas parties of my own. Somehow it's mysterious now that I'm gone. Now they're grown, and I've moved on. Hands of my youth are making me atone. The hands of time, they kill and punch. I miss them Vampel parties so much. Woo! tells me there's a fit bound to get thrown. If we get the van out of the ditch before morning, ain't nobody gotta know about what I done. And I never hear a single word you say when you tell me not to have my fun. It's the same old shit that I ain't gonna take off anyone. And I don't need to be forgiven by them people in the neighborhood. When we first hooked up, you looked me in the eye. You said, "Paul, we just ain't no good." We were heathens in their eyes at the time. I guess I'm just a heathen still. And I never have repented for the wrongs and say I've done what I feel. Was a difficult delivery. Now it's growing up mean and strong. When you tell me that it's getting just a little bit tight, ain't the first time I've been outgrown. And I'm gonna push a little harder. She ain't ref till the rods are thrown. I'll walk away. And I don't need to be forsaken by you or anybody else. And I never had a shortage of people trying to warn me, but the dangers I pose to myself, heathens. These times can take their toll sometimes, and I know you feel the same way too. It just gets so hard to keep between the ditches when the roads wind the way they do. How's everybody doing anyway?
You know, I was talking earlier about how I really wanted to meet Patterson, and I thought he'd be my friend if I met him, but I have to admit, when I first heard that song, it scared the fuck out of me. But then I was thinking last night, your favorite band should kind of scare you, you know? Right? The Rolling Stones, scary a little bit. Kiss, they're scary. I mean, kind of.
I'm not scared of Kiss. Fuck Kiss.
You can say that, but You can't think of another
I'm
band.
kidding.
You can't think of another band with no bad songs. Hey man, we just lost one of the Fab Four, so don't.
Hey, the Fab One, as far as I'm concerned. You know, the Drive-By Truckers played with Kiss at Voodoo Fest in New Orleans in 2011, and we all went as Ace Frehley, the entire band. We all went as Ace Frehley. He wasn't there, but so we all went as Ace Frehley.
So, since we're talking about scary bands, I'm going to go off script a little bit. Because I also got a little vibe out here. I'm detecting some, past, current, or non-practicing punk rock somewhere in here. Yeah, I'm getting the vibe, right? Really? Lapsed punks, So when I first got into punk rock, I was young. I was growing up in Minneapolis, and my friend and I, from down the street, got particularly just obsessed with, American hardcore of the early to mid '80s. And when you're that age, at least when we were that age, we were really hung up on this one part of it. We loved punk rock, but the part we were kind of hung up on was the idea of, real punks versus fake punks versus posers. We did not want to be posers, but unfortunately there was mounting evidence that we might be falling under that latter category. But I didn't want that. I didn't want that at all, so I went to the streets. That was what you did back then. There was no internet. I went to the streets. I went to this guy in my neighborhood and I said, he seemed to know more about this stuff than I did. I said, I don't want to be a fake punk. I want to be a real punk. How can I do this, man? And he said, hey, Craig, it's actually kind of easy. There's this band. They're called Black Flag. Real punks have seen Black Flag live. Fake punks have not. And you got to understand, in 1985, this was really good news to me. I'd already started to go to some shows. I lived in Minneapolis, shows were easy to come by, and Black Flag toured all the time. They played like 3 times a year. And sure enough, they announced a tour. I went down to the record store and I got myself some tickets. And those were not just tickets to see Black Flag, those were tickets to be a real fucking punk. I was 14 years old and I was pretty psyched. And I was waiting for the show with the tickets in hand, and I got some really bad news. See, I wasn't totally in control of my life at the point. And my parents said we were going on a vacation to visit relatives. I tried to talk them out of it, but they said it had to be that week and I'd have to miss the show. And I realized at the time, I'll be a real punk someday. I'm just gonna have to defer it until the next time they come. Well, when I just went off stage, I looked it up on my phone. That show was Wednesday, June 11th, 1986. Black Flag broke up on June 27th, 1986. And I was forever doomed to walk this earth as a fake punk. And I've accepted it. It's taken years of therapy, but I'm good with it. And here's the thing, I still use it as a bellwether. People are like, yeah, I'm a fucking punk rocker. I'm like, you seen Black Flag? No? Don't sound that punk to me. And you know what? That makes a certain type of guy really, really mad. People are like, how the fuck would I have ever seen Black Flag? I was born in 1990. And I was like, what makes you think punk is fair? Because eventually I learned punk is not fair. And eventually if you stick around long enough, it's not the scary punks, big bad skinheads that are coming to get you. They'll come and they'll fuck you with the rules. The rules are gonna get you. You stick around, they'll get the rules. That's what this song's about. It's called It's Never Been a Fair Fight. I met Vanessa right in front of her building. She was vague and dazed and drowning. She says she's got a new man and he's in a new band and they got a new sound. Yeah, well, hardcore's in the eye of the beholder. I got a broken heart from 1989. I was holding my head in my hands from the heat. There were elbows in my eyes. Vanessa said that there's threats that connect us, flags and wars we should never accept. Angelo said that there's snakes in the smoke from the cigarettes. Ivan isn't all that concerned. He said it's mostly about what you wear to the show. I think the scene's gonna fall apart pretty soon. Heard a song that I liked on the radio. If things change quickly, just remember I still love you. And I'll circle around the block tonight between 9 and 10 o'clock tonight. If you're still staying there, I'll take it as a sign. You agree it was a sucker punch. It's never been a fair fight. It's never been a fair fight. It's never been a fair fight. You said there weren't any rules, but there were so many goddamn rules. You said that they'd be cool, but there were so many goddamn rules. And some industrial vampire had it scratched into his skin. Someone got something from the store down the street. Someone got their head kicked in. If the cops shut down the show, just remember that we tried. And I'll meet you at that place we crashed in 1999. If you're still staying there, I'll take that as a sign that the drugs, they all ganged up on you. It's never been a fair fight. It's never been a fair fight. It's never been a fair fight. To the service, I didn't know what to say. Everybody's talking about a joie de vivre. I guess I didn't see it that way. Saw him snap off the filters. I guess he liked how it burned. Everybody's talking about his song and his laughter. I guess I'm still not sure. Yeah, I knew he was hurting. I was not exactly walking in bright lights. Yeah, I knew it could happen. It's never been a fair fight. It's never been a fair fight. It's never been a fair fight. Thanks. So last night, I think Patterson, you said that you started writing songs when you were 8. Is that right? I didn't get such a head start. I started about 13. But yeah, I was pretty young. It took me until 20 to write a good one. Or one, yeah. So yeah, I guess no matter when you start, you cross the starting line at the same time. But this next song is like my favorite song that I've written. And the caveat to that is no one else has ever told me that. So this one goes out to me. This is about a guy who goes off to war and he comes home and he has a lot more problems here than he did there. It's called Magic Marker. There were times when all that freedom had me wasted, wild and bored, shooting through the ceiling, shaking off the desert storm, reaching out for something, trying to let go of the war, hoping hard for something to hold on to. Stretching at the truth, trying to seem a little hard, scratching at the 8 ball in the back half of the bar. Used to always roll around with my magic marker. Some nights it just feels good to write your name. Later on we'd end up at the after hours house with the guy who took the money, with a fish hook in his mouth, pretty girls all burning holes in the cushions of the couch. All the times we saw dawn kick in the windows. Spent the best part of the summer trying to come up with a plan. Made a couple of little changes, and I met up with a man. Did something kind of strange, but I made like 16 grand. Hope I never have to pull that trick again. Hope I never have to pull that trick again. Went out west and tried to double it, lost it all, tried to recover it. I got pistol whipped in Portland. Oh Lord, I got so much of it. Had trouble with my numbers for some time. Some priest, he got me clean. The VA fixed my face. I came home behind the counter, started working at my uncle's place. Mostly taking orders, shaking cans of paint. Someone had to help me make the change. No, it's been 20 years since what we call the accident. Everybody knows, no one ever mentions it. Everybody's talking about the president. Me, I'm never sure what I should say. I'm still working at my uncle's place, still driving around in darkness, but I'm mostly staying straight. There's pretty girls up there at Independence Lake. They don't seem to see me anymore. Better with my numbers now. I'm parked down by the water, stretching at the truth, trying to seem a little softer. I still roll around with my magic marker. Some nights it just feels good to write your name. Some nights it just feels good to write your name.
I think that's my favorite song.
Well, that makes just the two of us.
Drank some coffee while I waited at the station. Brought back souvenirs from every vacation. something she's got stuck to the bottom of her shoes. When she's through with me, I guess I'll follow through and wait for something new to stick to. Pollyanna does not live here. Pollyanna does not live here. Pollyanna has moved far, far away. Pollyanna has moved far, far
So I moved to New York in September 15th, 2000, and that means almost my 1 year anniversary of my move was the horrific events of September 11th. And everyone who's in the city that day has their own story. I was working in an office on Union Square East and 15th, and when the planes hit the towers, my friend, who was also my boss, said maybe we should go to his roof and see what was happening. It was on 2nd Avenue and 9th Street. We walked over there, we got up on his roof. His name was Chris Newmeyer. He was my friend, but also my boss. It's 9:30 in the morning, it's a beautiful day, and we get up on his roof and we look down and we see the towers burning. And he turns to me and he says something I'll never forget, which is, "You want to get some beers?" Very inappropriate, it seems, but at that moment, there was no other emotion to access. It made as much sense as anything else he could have said.
Yep.
And in fact, it's what we did. We went down, got two six packs of Corona, I still remember it. Got up on his roof again, watched the towers burn, watched the towers fall. After that, like a lot of people, I went into a depression. A couple of years. Drugs, alcohol, divorce, all of it, for a few years. And eventually, I think a lot of people felt that malaise. But that's only the first part of the story. The second part of the story is, on that day, there was a woman on the 34th floor of the second tower. And when the planes hit the tower, they said, "You should stay where you are." And she said, "That doesn't sound right." But they said, "No, this is the safest thing. We'll get you out of here." And she said, I don't think so. So she hit the staircase and she started walking down the stairs. And things started to appear to be pretty bad. There's water rushing down the stairs, but she continued down, and there were other people doing it too. When she got to the ground floor, she ran out, and she saw things she wished she didn't see, but most importantly, she walked to her safety, and walked away from that building and did her best to get on with her life. A few years later, this woman went to a birthday party, and I was at that birthday party. So I talked to her, and we kept talking, and well, it's 2025, we're still together, and this is, I wrote this song about being on the tower, on my friend's roof that day, drinking beer and watching the towers collapse, and not understanding all the ways that it would affect my life. And I used to think about this song was about believing in something better to come. But I've come to learn that this song is just about believing in something. It's about rejecting nihilism leaving. There were the same bloodsuckers in the lobby again. When they called my name, I waved. I thought they might be my old friends. They had the cross in the car, they had the pig in the pen. I was in the bathroom doing my best to a sound. Down Thomas at the party supplies, the city likes how it looks. I wanna roll back my eyes. Studio sent a car to collect me. When the driver dropped me off at the lot, he said he'd never forget me. The publicist picked up lunch again. I had a Patterson and some pemmican. She said, man, you're so damn American. Down Thomas had his eyebrows raised. He said he liked me much better when I was walking away. No, I've never been crucified. I never suffered or died. I've never been shot. I've been lied to a lot. Hotel lobby, late night TV, or they're up on the stage, or you're down on your knees. Blood on my hand, ash in my wine. You can see I get anxious sometimes. Nails in my hands, blood in my eyes. I feel pretty cool, but you know I look fried. Well, all these tall tales, now one tiny truth. Saw the towers go down from up on Neumeyer's roof. Yeah, we were drinking. Yeah, we were frightened. It was all so confusing. Down Thomas wanted to talk to the cops. He said it sure seems like an inside job. No, I've never been crucified. I never suffered or died. I've never been shot. I've been lied to a lot. Hotel bar, they got the game on TV. You're either up in the lights or you're out on the street. Now we always want more, but we get what we need. I saw your girl at the movies. She seems pretty sweet. Down Thomas says a cynical take. He said the more you destroy, the more that you make. No, I never been crucified. I never suffered or died. I never been shot, but I've been lied to a lot. Look at these mountains, look at these trees. Time, there must be something you believe. Look at these mountains, look at these trees. Time, there must be something you believe. Time, there must be something. Time, there must be something. Time, there must be something you believe. Time, there must be something. Time, there must be something. Time, there must be something you believe.
craving. Lying here while she rants and raves, roads to hell she's paving. I don't wanna be put down. I don't want you back around. My girl's got a big black car, reserved parking spaces. From the church to the cemetery, through the lights she races. I don't wanna be pulled down. I don't want you back in town. I don't want it. I don't need it. Just shovel down. You ain't caught me yet. My girl's got these murky depths that she pulls me into. Try but ain't resistant yet. Hoops I'm leaping through, listening to your airplane
Patterson Hook. up for Ben Hackett. Oh, he went. Give it up for the guy who went to get the tequila. I haven't been drinking, but tequila doesn't count, does it?
It's like Black Flag in a bottle.
So I think we'll both give a closing statement here. But if you stick around, Patterson and I have both a bunch of merch over here. If you stick around, we'll come out and sign things if you're interested. I want to give I already told you about my book. I want to give a special plug to the baseball hat I have, which is based on the natural light hat I'm wearing. And I just want to say, I've worn this hat exclusively for 2 years. And so if you get the hat I've got, people might think you're me. And honestly, I pay for like half of my drinks. So it's an investment, you know? So I do want to say that I've talked a lot about being a Drive-By Truckers fan and how that led me to here and how that led me to my friendship with Patterson, but also led us here tonight to the Tractor Tavern, night 2. Beautiful club. It's my first time here. Last night was my first time. Wonderful people. Thanks for having us. This song's about how music brings us together, which seems apropos. Guess you're old enough to know kids out on the East Coast, roughly 20 years old, they got coaxed out by a certain perfect ratio. Warm beer to the summer smoke, yeah, and meatloaf to the Billy Joel. Certain songs, they get so scratched into our souls. She goes low on her seats, she gets high in her car. She's not deep in the steamy dreams of the guys along the harbor bars. She's pulling out her shirt tails, yeah, she's jacking up her socks. Stern and stoned and confident, coming up towards the jukebox, born into the only songs that everybody finally sings along. B1 is for the good girls, and it's only the good die young. C9 is for the vacant eyes, it's paradise by the dashboard light. B12 is for the speeders, G4 is for the lovers. The hard drugs are for the bartenders, and the kitchen workers, the bartender's friends. Yeah, they're playing it again. And Ellen Foley gives us hope. Certain songs, they get scratched into our souls. Guess you're old enough to know kids out on the West Coast, Man, they're taking off their clothes, screwing in the surf, going out to shows. They get high and they ride around in GTOs. Certain songs, they get so scratched into our souls. Certain songs, they get so scratched into our souls.
Vices and bad advices, and somehow I live to tell the tale. Gonna be a world of hurt. It's gonna be a world of hurt. It's gonna be a world of hurt. I was 27 years old when I figured out that blowing my brains out wasn't the answer, and I set out to find a way to make this world work out for me. My good friend Paul was 83 years old when he told me that to love is to feel pain, and I thought about that a lot back then. And I still think about it again and again. It's gonna be a world of hurt. It's gonna be a world of hurt. It's gonna be a world of hurt. Yeah, to love is to feel pain, there ain't no doubt about it. The very nature of love is to grieve when it's over. The secret to a happy ending is knowing when to roll the credits. Not tonight, motherfuckers. It's a beautiful world when you can put away the sadness and hang on to every ounce of beauty upon you, 'cause it don't matter what you do. If you feel anything at all, it's gonna be a world of hurt. It's gonna be a world of hurt. It's gonna be a world of hurt. So if what you got's working or you think it might stand a reasonable chance, if what's broke can be fixed, I mean, nothing lasts forever. If you still look at each other and you smile before you remember how screwed up it's gotten, or maybe you still dream of a time less rotten. You know, it ain't too late to take a deep breath of that fine Pacific Ocean air and throw yourself into life with everything you got. It's fucking great to be alive. It's gonna be a world world of hurt. It's gonna be a world of hurt. It's gonna be a world of hurt. It's gonna be a world. Bless y'all, everybody be careful. Don't take any shit off the fascist motherfuckers. We'll see you all soon. Bless you. Good night.
Good night.